I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to Conversations with Al McFarlane. Glad to be here. I'm glad to have you along today. I'm going to continue an ongoing conversation with our colleagues. I call them the ground level warriors in community. My friend Al Flowers is here, and also Miles Wilson is here. Al Flowers, is the celebrated host of community uh, conversations. Al, that's the right name for on Sunday on KMOJ, a powerful radio show. If you don't check it out, you should. It's a must listen show. It's a place where our people talk to each other and talk to the world, speaking truth to power, presenting our point of view. And also is the leader in the Safe Streets Initiative and a project called Underground Strategies. All in all, a committed set of ideas, energy, mobilizations, organizing of people in our community around our own interest. One of the things involved in that is the work of the uh, youth, young people's task force of the Unity Community Mediation Team. We're going to be joined momentarily by Reverend Ian Bethel, who is the leader of the Unity Community Mediation Team. We want to keep the idea of our interaction and our vision for effective, safe policing front and center. There are critical discussions underway right now about what policing will be and who will control it, and it's a place that we need to weigh in. Well, Miles Wilson is part of the team, the Young People's Task Force that is questioning, raising questions, and projecting ideas about how we see ourselves interacting with, directing, being stewards of community safety, including how we define what effective public safety is, and doing that with a boldness in speaking to the leaders of the city, leaders of the police department, leaders of the police union. All told, a great a set of initiatives that reflect our commitment to creating new narratives around who we are and our vision for a future that allows our people to be at the table of decision, that allows our people to win. Let me start with Al Flowers. Al, brother, how you doing, man? Good to see you.
Hey, thank you, Al. Doing great, doing great.
And so talk about kind of what's on your mind. It's always good to just background people, even though we've said this before. I think we can't say it enough. What's at stake now in the community? And I'm going to throw out three things that you can respond to. One is that there are a series of discussions and proposals in changing the charter amendment for the city of Minneapolis. There are three charter items, but one of them in particular talks about whether we will go with the idea of quote unquote defunding the police. So I'm going to ask you to talk about that, give background and kind of who the sides are, what the different interests are in that discussion. Another ongoing discussion has to be how our community mobilizes resources and people to respond to all kinds of crises and challenges that we are experiencing. And I think that kind of describes what you do with the Safe Streets Initiative in particular. So let's start with those two things. I see Zachary Matoya is here from the Unity Community Mediation Team. Zach, good to see you. Al Flowers, let's start with you. Go ahead and talk about the background on Safe Streets Initiative and lead from there into a general framing of what the community has to think about pro and con when the phrase defund the police comes up.
Thank you, Al. We, as usual, we're in a crisis in our community, as always. When we as you say, we get misery and they get the money, and this time around, I think, Al, we come into a better direction from the community, from our community, and so when we dealing what we've been dealing with, I've been dealing with is helping organize and coordinating collective of organizations to work on Minnesota Safe Street, and that's a group of organizations like a Mother's Love and We Push for Peace and Salem Inc. Everybody know Pastor McAfee, Mother's Love with Lisa, and then in St. Paul with Mickey Frost, with 8 to 18 and the God Squad with Reverend Spence, who was at the State Fair trying to keep the State Fair calm this whole time when a lot of situations broke out, fighting. So Safe Street is that community-based solution that goes along with what they asked for when they tore. I say they tore our city up. They burned it down. It was righteous to rebel about what happened to George Floyd and the murder of George Floyd. And but when they burnt everything down in the neighborhoods that most people of color, minority community was in, we didn't really benefit from the burn down. You know, I always said I didn't have a problem with them burning the police station down because that police station was a horror to our community in particular and the Native American. So I didn't have a problem with that. I had a problem when they started burning the pharmacies, and the people that did it were a lot of them from out of town, but a lot of them from here. And we didn't benefit anything out of since George Floyd died. That's what bothered me. And Val 7 Minnesota Safe Street, it's a collective of organization in the community, building institution that will last us a long time and someplace for us to go to change the narrative, Al. You know, we talked about the narrative change and how they look at us, and we just got to accept we're looked at like no other people in this country. And so when we come with a plan like Minnesota Safe Street, is to protect ourselves. Because when they say defund, dismantle, abolish the police, and you don't talk to the people that's most affected, about a situation. George Floyd was a black man that had his knee on his, the white man had his knee on his neck, and people benefited. They raised resources, millions, hundreds of millions of dollars to talk about what happened to George Floyd. But it really didn't hit us and impact our community. And I reached out to those people that was raising the money, and I asked them to put millions into housing, business development, public safety, and education. Bring that back to us, because that would have gave us a little leverage to go after even our tax-based dollars with the government. And they didn't do it. We used to that. We accepted it, and we moved on. And we in a place now with Safe Street that we can help our community. We can, as African American, we can dictate what happens in our community like every other community does. We're the only community that they say we're gonna help you, and they've been helping us 400 years, and we nothing came to us, Al. So that's why we got that institution called Safe Street that drives on to what you'll be talking to young Miles Wilson and Zach about the Young People Task Force and the Unity and Community Mediation Team, where we are about to begin a series. I don't want to step on Miles' toes, on the young people's toes, because I know he got a lot to say about that. And then, Al, if I could just say with Zach on here, Zach has been instrumental, and he called the federal government a couple of days after George Floyd was killed, and got the DOJ back in here. It didn't work out the way we would hope with the DOJ, because they wanted to start over, Al, and you know about this. We said, no, we did this already 15 years ago. We don't want to start over. We don't want Miles and AJ and Lexi and Laziah and these young people to start over from something that we did for 5 years for no money, We worked on it, and then the city scrapped, just didn't do nothing with the plan that what we suffering from now. So Zach was instrumental in that, and on the charter commission stuff, Zach was heavy on early on working on the charter stuff. So we got teams of experts. When you talk about Mark Anderson, Anita Urbina, the GLBT community, the Somali community, and our chair, Ian Bethel, and native chair, Frank Pyro, and Mary Lagarde. All these people are on the Unity community mediation team that can help young people like Miles Wilson and them that's been put on the display. So I hope I put it the way to kind of help you set them up, because they know they got something going here, Al.
Well, let me thank you, Al Flowers. The background is always important. I think we have to always bring forward the context, what the struggle is and why it exists the way it is at any given time. And Zachary, let me go to you next, just for that same spirit. You've been on the front line for a long, long, long time, as Al Flowers has and as I have. So we got history in this community and in the country in the struggle, the fight for demanding and building the rights of our people in a hostile environment, one that remains hostile. But Zachary, let me ask you to sort of weigh in and, in your own words, talk about the context. Why are we here right now in terms of the work of the Unity Community Mediation Team? Let people who don't know what the origin was of that initiative and what the hopes were and what they remain today.
Originally, we came together, all of the...
Can you lean into your mic a little bit more, because you're
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. All of the communities in Minneapolis, we came together, and it was based upon the police brutality, okay? All the way back when Buka Saunders got killed by police in South Minneapolis is when I actually started getting engaged. And we went through an extensive process and selection of people from different communities of color and all communities, even the GLBTQ community, mental health and everything else. And we all came together, and it was to come up with a plan, an agreement on how to make the Minneapolis Police Department better. We did not get the work completed. However, we did make some very instrumental changes. And I will refer to the testimony that Police Chief Arredondo was able to do in the Derek Chevron trial in regard to Derek Chevron not acting as trained as a Minneapolis police officer. A lot of that new training, a lot of that new focus and direction of the Minneapolis Police Department was based upon work that we did. Chief Arredondo was there with us, with Al and all the other members. And so a lot of things have been initiated. And so during the trial, Chief Arredondo was able to sit there and say, no, he did not act according to Minneapolis Police Department rules and regulations and procedures. So that's, the effects are there, not only in that, but in a lot of other things as far as advancement of officers of color and things of that nature are concerned. So we want to continue that work. We're picking it up. We're doing some things different this time. We are now a nonprofit organization. We are in the process of filing for 501c3 status. We have a fiscal agent. And what's important about that, Al, is that it brings in longevity. It brings in generational participation. And that's what's so important about this Young People's Task Force. These young people will be taking the Unity Community Mediation Team over in the very near future. And youth will then step in and take their positions. And the reason for that is this thing has got to be a generational thing. This is not something that we can initiate now and then can be changed later. This is something that's got to be there from now on. And so, in saying that, that's where we started. Right now, we are in negotiations with the Minneapolis police chief, but the boundaries are not there anymore. We're also dealing with the Minnesota Post Board. We're dealing with the Minnesota Human Rights Division. We're dealing with so many more organizations.
Can you join the program?
Groups. And so, it's a good thing that things changed the way that they did with the Unity Community Mediation Team. We're moving in a very positive direction, and I hope that's a good response to your question.
It's a great response. I'm sorry for my distraction. I just got a call from Farhia Khalif, who's going to be joining the program too. She's getting the link. And so, but this is just important backgrounding. And what you're saying and what Al Flowers is saying really focuses on, the work that Miles and AJ and this team of young leaders is stepping into. And I want to go to Miles, and welcome you to the program once again, and have you talk about how you all have come together as the Young People's Task Force, an affiliate of the Unity Community Mediation Team, and who you are. Name your friends and colleagues, your partners in this venture, and why it's important to you for your voice. I've got some more questions to bring up to you as well, but let's start with you sort of laying out the vision and the proposition.
Yes, definitely. So again, thank you for having me on the show again. And initially, to start with the vision, piggybacking and elaborating off of what Zach mentioned, is all about the sustainability, all about the growth of the Young People's Task Force. Other co-chairs as well. You have myself. Again, my name is Miles Wilson. You have Al Flowers Jr. or AJ Flowers. You have Nicholas Martins. You have Laziah Smith that come from a range of backgrounds. We also have partners, Jordan Zickerman, who we brought on to the Young People's Task Force recently within the last week, as we're looking to expand our outreach to young people throughout the different communities. As Farhia coming on in a moment, we've connected with her to outreach to some young people in the East African or Somali communities to expand our outreach there as well. Because again, young people are the same, but they're different. We all come from different backgrounds. We all come from different communities. And so we can't always rely on ourselves as, myself, AJ, Nick, or Laziah to have the answers for the greater good and the better well-being of the communities in Minneapolis. We understand that Minneapolis is a very diverse city. So in order to accomplish and tackle this large city, we're expanding our knowledge, our experiences, and our connections with different young people throughout various communities throughout the city of Minneapolis. But again, it started last fall. So almost about a year, last October, where we sat down with the Unity Community Mediation Team and kind of brought those ideas to the table of saying, that young people are looking to follow other young people. They're more inclined to speaking and kind of communicating with other young people that come from similar or different situations. And so that's where this is all kind of started and began.
What's your own personal background, Miles? How did you come to this work? You grew up in North Minneapolis or South Minneapolis? I'm just curious as to your story.
Yeah, definitely. No, definitely Minneapolis. Grew up on both North and South Minneapolis, actually. I mean, my family has lived in North Minneapolis, but my mother's side comes from North Minneapolis. My father's side comes from South Minneapolis. So kind of being stretched across, both ends of the city. But yeah, coming from North Minneapolis, attended school at Southwest High School, closer to Southwest Minneapolis. So going into that area, but always being a resident of Minneapolis.
Mhm. Talk about your mom and your dad. I'm just curious because family means everything to me. And I think that we have to always acknowledge that we simply are presenting what's been presented to us. We are, in fact, the presentations of our parents, right? And
Mhm.
so, what is your sense of legacy? Uh, Talk about your mom and your dad.
Definitely. My father's side, first generation immigrant from Jamaica. So they came here, I believe, in the late 50s, early 60s. But my father was born here in Minneapolis as well. But family definitely comes from Jamaica on that side. And they lived in South Minneapolis. My mother's side come from some fighters on that side. My grandfather, Ray Island, my grandmother, Doris Island, were some fighters. My grandfather, what I know, has kind of been a part of this fight for a long time as well. I mean, he's no longer with us, but he was the vice president of Pillsbury, one of the first African-American execs in the company of affirmative action. So I guess that's kind of just in my blood, and then for me, it was more about like me coming from certain situations. Like I said, like we've talked about, police brutality, being that person, being that young person who, and I talked about before with the Unity Community Mediation Team, being pulled over the week after I got my driver's license, right?
Mhm.
And not knowing really what to do. I got pulled over for, being accused of being a drug dealer. And so they searched my vehicle and let me go. And at that point, I knew that there were other situations alike out there. I knew that other, African-American young men dealt with that same situation. And from then on, that was 16 years old. It's kind of when I've stepped into that light and decided to take that accountability, take the responsibility in terms of kind of molding and shaping other young men so that they know what to do in situations and know how to kind of rebuild our communities.
I told you this before, I'll say it again, but your grandfather was one of my heroes and one of the people that influenced my life. I was in the corporate arena early on, and he was one of the first Black people there. Plus, he had always distinguished himself in his university career, I think, as an athlete, and had always been prominent in national athletic competition. So he was a powerful corporate and community leader. Lived about out my back porch across the street from where I'm sitting right now. I'm over on Thomas Avenue, and the Island Palace was on the corner of Plymouth and Upton, right?
That's
Yeah.
right. That's
And
right.
so you guys grew up there, and I recall with fondness also the legacy of you all being one of the bases for the Minneapolis Sound with your uncle
That's right.
and members in the family. My next door neighbor, Jimmy, I think, used to come over to your grandpa's house to the jam with Flight Time.
Right.
And so it's just a rich and wonderful connection that you bring. And to me, it's important to acknowledge that we are connected, that the connections are multi-generational. That's what Al Flowers is talking about. And so I want to ask you this in that spirit. How do you, Miles Wilson, begin to think about ordering your steps today in such a way is that you have an intentional impact on the 14th generation out? 14 generations. We now are the product of about 14 generations of Africans in the New World. And standing where we are, how do we discover, if you believe this, our obligation to have a vision that talks about a change, creating a new understanding that frees our people and frees humanity? Loaded question. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a very important question to ask. I think that in terms of thinking out in the future like that, I again take that back to myself. I take that back to in terms of saying the inspiration and motivation behind what we do and what we've done. Will continue to then push forward for those future generations and get them inspired. I mean, when I think about it, I don't think that, like, even when I reference like somebody like my grandfather, how I was 10 years old, when he passed away. So I never got the time to really pick his brain or to really, have those conversations, or I wasn't, just mature enough at that time to really understand what he had done. But then to hear from other community elders, and then to have them kind of speak to me and say, hey, this is what your grandfather has done. This, you're kind of following in his, footsteps, or even other leaders that we've had in the past that we look up to in the African-American community that we don't actually know or have that, connection with, but how they've inspired us to continue that fight. So when I think about that question, I think about, what am I doing to inspire that next generation? How am I going about the business or the work in the sense of inspiring that next generation? And what I think about is how, building those relationships. It just takes one person. You build that relationship with the next person, and you have that positive impact on their life, and then they continue to pass that information on, so that future generations then hear and see and say, hey, maybe I didn't know Miles Wilson, but what he's done has impacted this person in my life, and that makes me want to do the next good deed, or the next step, or take those next steps of fighting for equality or justice.
You all have some events coming up. One of the things you talked about is a series of engagements, not only in the Black community, but in all of the major ethnic communities. Talk about that. You got something coming up this Saturday, I believe.
Correct.
And then beyond that, what else is going on the calendar that people can be aware of and tune into or monitor on social media?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so exactly right. So this upcoming Saturday, that'll be September 11th, from noon to 2. We'll be hosting a series of community conversations, which is an 8-part series. This is an 8-part event. This is event number 1. This will be held at Little Earth. The address I'll provide, it's 2495 18th Avenue South in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Now, we're looking to engage with, again, community engagement has been important to us. So that's our focus, is to get into the communities, in different communities, and really engage with their young people to figure out, what they're dealing with, what issues do they see at hand, what solutions or resolutions do they have in mind that they would like to see change in their community, so they can have, why do they feel safe? Why maybe they don't feel safe? And so we're looking to really, dive deep into these conversations with young people throughout these different various communities, to figure out how we can impact their communities in a positive way. Maybe they need different resources. Maybe they are looking to have a specific outreach. We've talked to young people prior who said that they didn't feel safe talking to their own families. And so maybe we're that tool, that resource that they need to open up. So that's why we're looking to dive into these various communities in an 8-part aspect, so that we can really, look to make some changes in these various communities. And we understand that different communities deal with different situations and different issues. So again, that's really the focus of our conversations.
So, people locally will understand what it means when you say Little Earth, but there are people that are watching through Black Press USA, the Black Press of America, that don't have the understanding of what Little Earth is. Take a minute to describe the relationship with the Little Earth community. What does it mean?
Definitely, yeah. So Little Earth, I believe, is the name of the actual location that we're going to, but it's also the name of the specific community and area that we will be going into. And Little Earth is primarily Native American, and that's going to be the first community that we dive into. I've lived in that area, so I kind of have an idea of what's going on. But again, to kind of connect with people that that's lived there their entire lives, or have hung out in that neighborhood their entire lives. I didn't grow up hanging out in that area, so I didn't know too much before I moved into the area. But again, yeah, it's a primarily Native American neighborhood, but there's also some other backgrounds and ethnicities that live in that area as well.
How difficult or challenging is it for there to be cooperation between our American Indian brothers and sisters and, say, our brothers and sisters from the Horn of Africa, from the Somali or East African or West African communities, brothers and sisters from the Latino and even the Hmong Vietnamese communities? How much interaction is there, speaking from your age group as a young person?
Mm-hmm.
Are we in silos that we can't get out of? Are we discovering similarities, both of the challenges we have and also the need to collaborate, create strategies for change? What's your thought?
And I think that, like I said, is there are a lot of similarities between, from all of our communities. I mean, we all deal with different issues. We all deal with similar issues. But in terms of like collaborating and connecting, that's the reason why the Young People's Task Force is looking to expand, because as an African-American male myself, as well as Nick, as well as AJ, we have a perception of life and a perception of situations through our lens as African-American men, of the upper 20s age range. So we expand in ways that we want and brought on, women voices, female voices, different age ranges, different backgrounds, because as we're collaborating with our within ourselves as a Young People's Task Force, we're coming up with ideas that, I wouldn't necessarily think of, that my sister Jordan, who is, a Native American woman that's about the same age, that she's thinking of through a different lens, or things that, that her community is dealing with. So, and that's to answer that question. We do come from similar areas or similar issues. So the collaboration is there because, everybody sees these issues to be the same, whether that's, the opioid epidemic, whether that's violence, gun violence, or, whether that's, police brutality, in a sense that we do come from similar situations, but we also do have those differences. And that's where we look to kind of be diverse. And that's the kind of the proposition of the Young People's Task Force, is to be diverse so that we can help each other.
Zach, what are your thoughts? I'm enjoying this conversation. I'm both impressed and happy that we have young leaders like Miles and the team at the table. And I believe that my job, your job, Flowers, our job is to ensure that we become a foundation, a base that they can launch from, because they, in fact, are launching the future. Zach, what do you think? What are your thoughts as you hear Brother Young Miles speak? Unmute. There you go.
I'm sorry. I love it. It's a wonderful experience in working with the Young People's Task Force. We have a lot of side meetings as well, and they listen. They're eager to learn, and once they learn it, they don't forget it. So it is, my position, and Al's and Reverend Bethel's and all the other Unity Community team members, we're all focused on mentoring these youth to get them ready for, more leadership roles within the community. And in turn, they are also mentoring youth that are younger than them, like Miles and them. They have some members, that are right around 14, 15, 16 that are still in school even. And so they're looking at doing some things within the schools as well. One of the things that we're also working on for youth that are still students is to get them education credits for their participation. And Al Flowers is one of the leaders in getting that to a head. But we want them to, get education credits for participating, because they are learning so much. And for me, it's a joy. It's really a joy to work with them. And like I said, I'm here for them anytime that they need. Absolutely.
I'm going to come back to you in a second, Al Flowers. I see Farheel Khalifa's there. We had her video a minute ago. Maybe she's had to step up for the phone. But Farheel, whenever you come back, I want to bring you in the conversation. And until we do, Al, jump back in, Al Flowers. As I listen to Miles and all of us in this conversation, I don't know if you brothers remember the music of Billy Paul. You remember Billy Paul, Flowers? I know Zachary does. And one of you're muted, Al.
Me and Mrs. Jones.
That's one, but that's not what I'm talking about, though.
Okay.
That's one of his hits. But he also
Yeah.
had a hit on that album, I think, called "The War of the Gods,"
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
theme was "The time has come for
Yeah.
the war of the gods."
Yeah.
And I'm telling you that I'm thinking that's where we're moving. And, war might not be war in the classic sense. War of the gods may reference simply a war of spirit and a war of minds and a war of awareness, but a confrontation is underway as we speak. And all of the incidents that happened around the murder of George Floyd and all the other people that have been uh, you know, um, destroyed by, uh, by public policy, by police action, but also the destruction that we're experiencing within our community. People that don't think right and therefore don't act right and therefore do damage to our own house, our own families. So I think that we're moving into an arena where the reconciliation, the reckoning that people are talking about is really at hand. I see Fahio is there. Fahio, good to see you, my friend. How are you? Unmute your mic and jump in the conversation. Yeah, and just respond however you want to based on what you've heard so far.
Yes, I'm doing well, mashallah. Alhamdulillah, we say God is great. How are you? How everybody doing?
You doing well? And so
Did you
the
ask me
question.
something? Sorry, I missed it. Sorry.
Oh, I just wanted you to join the conversation and talk about the importance of organizing young people in particular, but in organizing the entire community to advocate for our rights and for our dignity. You're doing wonderful work with women and in the Somali community. Talk about what you're doing and what the challenges are and the successes you're having. Let's see, you have your technology there.
Yeah.
Right now you're muted again. We lost you. Flowers, let's talk until she comes back. We've set it up.
Well, Al, while we waiting on Par here, I just think what you led into and do Miles and have Miles say who he is and when you talk about the Billy Paul song, we are in a different kind of space here, particularly as ADOS people, where we need the Miles and the AJs. To do what they're doing, the Knicks and Alexis and all these young people, we need them to, but we need them to know because we don't have to have time to go back, as I said earlier in the show. When we look at what they are coming up against, they coming up some things that we never seen. We watched since George Floyd. We watched so many murders happen in our community. And the disturbing thing for me is, it's always been violence, but it's never been to this magnitude where we watching babies get shot. Sometime and they at one time 3 babies shot within a 2-week period, and shot and 2 dead and 1 still with a bullet in his brain. We watched, but in the month. Like in March, February, around Valentine's Day to April, just so many Black women were killed. They were killed, and it's like something unheard of. Even as a man, we used to seeing that we had some violence in our community, and we was losing our Black brothers, but we never seen it where we was losing our Black women and the dignity to say it that we didn't want to talk about it, but to watch Black women get shot through in the alley and the garbage man find them and things like that. So we in some kind of war here, and so I think what we are doing now with Miles and AJ and these young people and our Somali young people and Native young people is trying to lead them to get them better knowledge of what's going on, because they still got to live their life while we doing this. Al, you know that we've been doing it a long time, and to see where we at now, it's scary to me as an activist to see, can we get it done? Can we get it done quick? And that's why I'm a big advocate about our media. And I tell Miles and them, hey, I did a lot of things wrong that I didn't know, because I was fighting. I was fighting something that I didn't know what I was fighting, and the system used me sometimes to have me fighting, attacking the wrong people. Because I'm looking at my elders and saying, hey, why they keep doing this to us? Why they keep doing this to us? So when I see what we at now, Al, that we can see it, we can be here on your show talking. We didn't have a lot of these tools that these young people have now, and they good at it. And so we got to put them in the position to use these tools. And shout out to the world, like with George Floyd, the man had his knee on George Floyd's neck for that length of time and had no conscience about what he was doing. Me and you know, they was killing African Americans long before that. It just didn't get caught on camera.
Right.
And now people are pulling their cameras out. So when I look at it, Al, I'm like what Zach said. I'm amazed at what these young people know, and if they listen the right way, and get that history and that knowledge of what we got out there, especially on this mediation team, they gonna get there a lot quicker than we do. If you think you know it already, you don't know it, because I still don't know it. Mm-hmm. I'm still fighting today, because if I knew it, I'm telling them what they doing to us, but it's not. It's just something different, Al, and I like the part about we started in the Native community at Little Earth. Little Earth is a project. It's almost managed by the Native community. They've been managing Little Earth, so they got their way to go. And we had a meeting last night, and we got to go in there. Miles and AJ and them got to go in there and hear them. You got to go to the Somali community and hear them. That not for us to go in and tell. We've always been the community that accepted everything, even though we the most abused people in this country with the Native American. But the Native American land was taken, but they made us build it. They made us build it. And some people, Al, you might can respond to this. Some people think we because they come here, and I say this, and my sister probably here know that they come here, they get, and things move quicker for them. Even now, it moves quicker for every other community. They still got that grip on us, where they sometimes they do not feel like to free us, and sometimes our other brothers and sisters from our immigrant community or our Native community don't understand. The Natives got treaties, they got things that they can do. I wish African Americans had 2 casinos, because our hearts would let us say, how do we help our people? We have nothing besides our personal wealth, that was earned. You earned what you doing at Inside News. Mm-hmm. We earned what we get. We from a deficit, but when we got here, they redlined us on housing. They didn't give us our education. They didn't give us a business development so we could create our own jobs. They give us none of that. And so if our other communities can understand, don't get mad because we get frustrated and say, F the system, it ain't no good to us, because so many of our people have suffered, and nobody is getting thrown in the alley. Women not getting thrown in the alley like black women. Babies not getting shot in the head in nobody else's community. And so even though we know that, but we still saying, what's your issue in your community, in the Native, in the East African, in the Latino, in the Hmong community? We still are that people, the GLBTQ. They wouldn't be able to get married in Minnesota if it weren't for African Americans. That's why I told them we love everybody. We just got to find our way, and I think we're on the way right now with the things we're doing with the young people and what we doing with all communities, working with Fahia and Abzak Be, working with Anita Urbina, working with the people, even though, Al, we're still in 90% pain in our community. We still hurting real bad.
What you're saying is we also have a philosophy and a concept that collaboration is the key, and that we can move together better than we can move alone. Fahia, good to see you, my friend. I wanted to give you a minute just to add your thoughts, your feelings to this conversation, and talk about the challenges of the East African community in general. Talk about the challenges of women in general, and how we have to do things, organize to advance all of our communities together. What do you think? Can you unmute Fahia? Or no, I think she's I think her screen is frozen, so she's probably not connected the bandwidth. Miles, let me come back to you, and Zachary, jump in when you want to. So I talked about, Miles, this whole thing of collaboration. What short-term goals do you have with the Young People's Task Force, and what, again, are the longer or midterm goals?
Yeah, so with the short-term goals, we're focused on these conversations, first and foremost, which leads into our plan for our midterm goals, which would be next spring. That midterm goal is what we're calling the Youth Summit, which is a 3-day event. And it's not different from our current events now. Again, these are separate events that we're hosting now. The Youth Summit is a 3-day long event where we're going to be having different guest speakers. We're going to have different workshops for young people. And those workshops are things like financial literacy. We're going to have education and safety. That goes into what Zach was saying earlier about us working with the Minneapolis Public Schools to potentially provide credits to students, And so again, what we're looking to do, our midterm and long-term goals are empower, young people in the city. We know how important it is, and that it is for young people to have additional credits to kind of boost their morale or learn something new that isn't taught in school, So we're focusing on that leveling out and evening that playing field for ADOS people, minorities, and to kind of level that playing field. Investment, like things like that as an African-American male, that going to high school or even in families, those kind of things aren't talked about as much as in our communities and our families, is how to invest your money, how can you make your money grow. And so those are like the workshops that we're working towards now in terms of getting in the right people, so that people know that, hey, I have $100. What can I do with this $100? Instead of going $100 right away, you can invest it and make it fun for them so that they're actually engaged into doing it. That way we can level those playing fields and make ourselves, by the time we go to college, we're not looking for student loans as we mostly are. Or by the time, if you don't decide to go to college, you can do what you want to do, start your own business, travel the world, doing things like that. So our midterm goals, again, is that Youth Summit, so that we're looking forward to creating that and presenting that to the city of Minneapolis.
Zach, jump in. Go ahead, Zach. Unmute.
Yeah, let me say this. I think it's vitally important for everybody to understand where we are with this whole abolish thing. They wanted to come out and they wanted to say, no, it's really just defund. But the latest language that's going to be on the ballot contradicts that statement. They wanted to say that the charter change would not remove Police Chief Arredondo. The new language says, oh yeah, this action will remove him as chief of police, and matter of fact, it'll remove the entire police department. So we got to understand that. And I'm going to ask you a question now. I'm going to make a statement, but I'm going to ask you a question.
Sure.
And Brother Al Flowers and Miles, have you seen the plan? Have you seen their plan? I mean, actually in writing anywhere of what they're going to do if this vote goes through and the police department is removed. This thing is to be initiated within 30 days. Okay, so we're talking December of this year, where we would have no police department. Mm-hmm. Okay, and even if they say we want you guys to stick around for a little while, how many officers you think gonna stick around after they vote to remove a police department? How many do you think gonna stick around? This can head up to be the biggest. I mean, it's already being set up. Brother Flowers has already discussed the rise in crime and everything else. Can you imagine if half of the police department tells them, says, no, we gone. You voted us out, we gone. We ain't sticking around for nothing. If half of them do that in December, where we gonna be? They don't have no plan. So
hey, Zach. Hey, Zach, let me.
We'll get the vote in, and then we'll put everything in place. How you gonna do that in 30 days? Mm-hmm. That's ridiculous.
Hey, Zach, let me jump in with you on that, because I want to say that Zach just hit it on the nail on the head, Al. They talking about putting the plan in 30 days. When they started the Office of Violence Prevention, they said they would have that up 2 years ago. Now what Zach just said is so important that people understand that these people are saying they're gonna have some. And Lisa of A Mother's Love said exactly what Zach said. She said if this passes, that half of the police department will go into retirement and start buying themselves out and things like that. So I'm glad Zach put that on the table. That is so real, and we better understand that. And especially Miles, AJ, you got to understand that if this happens, we ain't got no police department. It's going to impact not only our community, but the Somali community, the Native American community, the Latino community. All the communities of color will be the worst impacted with what Zach just said. That's so important. I'm glad you got that in, because Al, he absolutely right. They said if this passes, they're in their thing. They have to have a public safety department in 30 days. It can't be done, and they lied to our people. And it's a most dangerous thing that can happen to Minneapolis. And I'm glad Zach brought that up. That's great, Zach.
I have in my hand an item that I got in the mail today, or at my doorstop today, from the city, or from the group called All of Minneapolis, and it speaks to the position that you are talking about. But this one particularly criticizes Minneapolis mayoral candidate Sheila Nezhad. I think I'm saying her name right. And it says that Sheila Nezhad is an advocate of abolishing the police department. It quotes her as saying, "No, we don't want police. Reform won't work." So that all brought us to this moment. So we had already primed these council members. Some of them ran being accountable to imagining a police-free future. And when the time came and they were talking to community members and saying, hey, what are we going to do? We said, we're just going to abolish the police. That's a quote attributed to Sheila Nezhad in a flyer put out by All of Minneapolis. So that's the point. I think, Zach, your question was, have we actually seen the charter, and has it been the question, and has it been fully and properly vetted, circulated? What we do know is that the language seems to change, and that the courts have struck down several versions, and the mayor has vetoed versions of it, and that as late as I think yesterday or day before, new language is being offered. So there's a shifting sand here, and there's not a clarity, as you're saying, Al Flowers, on what they really mean, except for that, as Sheila is saying, the bottom line is abolish the police. And we have to be careful about that. Farhia, we're glad you're here, monitoring the conversation.
Yes,
Are you able to
yes. I'm
speak?
sorry, yes,
Yeah,
my signal was not good. I don't know if you can hear me.
we hear you perfectly now. What are your thoughts?
Yes, yeah. I want to say thank you so much for having us here today, and it's wonderful to have these communities united. And when we part of the unit community mediation team and Voice of East African Women, been advocating for women and youth issues since the beginning, and we formed Mothers Against Youth Recruitment by 2013. And we accomplished 2014 every year, partnering with the law enforcement community, and having now been part of the UCFT Unity Community Mediation Team. This is wonderful, where our youth really don't know each other, where they all live in one city, but also it's like in a jungle, like different animals, right? And every animal and it's different. You have to know what this animal is about. So this is what I look at it in our communities. When I talk to the Somali youth, I meet with them daily and they understand how important it is that we work and become brother and sisterhood, and the African American community, the Latino community, the Native community, and all the communities that we're surrounded. And sometimes some of them they heard about it, but they don't understand. You know what I mean? This is why we are tirelessly the UCMT community meeting, the Young People's Task Force, and thanks to AJ and Miles and Nick and all the teams that are coming forward, and the youth now, the Somali youth, the group that I dealt with, they have a lot of questions that they thought they knew, but they don't know nothing about it, right? And when you look at 9/11, there's no other community in the Somali country is hit hardly because of terror recruitment coming from around the world, from Syria to Somalia to other part of the world. But in this country, 9/11 is what we all know what happened to that. Last few weeks, the part of the regions that we from born and raised, or our mothers and fathers are born and raised, Al-Shabaab is taking over. Every day in our community, in the Somali community, and in this youth who are born and raised in here, 19, 20 years old, 16 years old, all they're hearing about is all day long their mom and dad, people like my age, all day long on the phone talking to make sure what neighborhood was blown up yesterday by the militant device. And then if we want to find out it's uncle and mom and somebody's still alive, who made it. So it's very important when we talk about 9/11 in the country. That means young minds who are American right now. They belong to this country, and it's a discussion that is very tough, very serious at the time, and it's hard hard in our communities, right? So UCMT, Miles, and the Somali youth and the Young People's Task Force, they meet every Thursday night, every Saturdays, and you know what, the Somali, last Thursday, and I tell them, you know what, I'm going to step out. You guys take the lead. And they're like, really? We can do this? I say, yes, you guys can do this. And I just want them to know that you are what we're looking for tomorrow. And our youngs are not being challenged. I not put them on the table and say, you're going to lead today, you're going to take it over there. Talk about the uncomfortable questions. What it means to police reform in our community. What it means our safety in our neighborhoods. When you look at the Native community, African American community, our community, what is the difference? What are we fighting for? We're fighting for safety. We're fighting for the health for our families, have a safe neighborhoods. But guess what? If you look left or right, a couple blocks from here, you will see these other communities live there too, right? But for us, we need resources as well, because this youth is only in time that they're going to realize they come in here, these meetings, sharing their ideas. They've been taught, but there's no resource, and the state is not giving funding for this organization such as UCMT and Voice of Africa, many other Safe Street, and many others, especially somebody like you, my brother Al and McFarlane, who are bring us together, our voice to be heard through the world. We can shut this day. I'm just really excited about what we can do through UCMT, bringing all these communities to come to the table. This is all I see. I haven't seen any like this, and I've been here for years. So what means for us when, yes.
Yeah, ahead. Listen, I think we're out of time now, but wonderful comments, Faria. Sister, good to see you again. Thank you for your leadership and your work in the community. What we're going to do is try to dedicate this program every Wednesday to the Safe Streets Initiative, to the Unity Community Mediation Team, and to the Young People's Task Force. We think that this is a place where we can project our vision, our voice, and give an account and hold ourselves and the community accountable as well. So I'm going to say thank you to all of you who are here. Al Flowers, Miles Wilson, thanks to my friend Zach Matoya. We were trying to get Reverend Ian Bethel on. Probably the technology didn't work. Farhia, thank you for being here. I'm Al McFarlane. We'll see you again. We do this program every day at 1 o'clock. Tomorrow, I talk with a group of lawyers, and our topic tomorrow is going to be philanthropy. What's the story behind philanthropy, and how sometimes philanthropy is not what it purports to be, but rather is another control mechanism that may disserve us more than serve us. We'll have that discussion tomorrow. Friday, we talk with Dr. Bravada Garrett Akansanya in the Healing Circle. So join us every day, 1 o'clock. I'm Al McFarlane. We'll see you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Oh, Queen Justice, where are you? Did they beat you up or no? Lock you on the ground, take the crown away from you?
Oh, Lady Liberty, red, white, and blue. Did they take your dignity with their bigotry? Teach you that you're born to lose.
Free or guilty, it's gonna get filthy. Better believe, roll up your sleeves. It's gonna get rough, it's gonna be tough. We all agree, we've had enough.
We've had enough
of all the rules you break.
We've had enough
of all the money you make.
We've had enough.
No more life at stake.
We've had enough.
This is a proclamation.
It's been 400 years and we're 400 late. Together we stand from state to state. Going back in time won't make America great. We need justice now, people won't wait.
Action, no more distraction. Every step we take, we gain traction. If it can happen to one, it can happen to all. United we stand, divided we fall. Free or guilty, it's gonna get filthy. Better believe, roll up your sleeves. It's gonna get rough, it's gonna be tough. We all agree, we've had enough.
We've had enough
of all the rules you were breaking.
We had enough
of all the money you were making.
We had enough.
No more life gets taken.
We had enough.
This is a proclamation.
Free or guilty,
It's gonna get filthy. You better believe.
just roll up your sleeves.
It's gonna get rough. It's gonna be tough.
We all agree, we've had enough. We've had enough of all the rules you're breaking. We've had enough. All the money you're making. We've had enough. No more life gets taken. We've had enough. This is the proclamation.
We've had enough. Trayvon Martin and Tommy Rice.
We've had enough.
Michael Brown and Eric gonna pay the price.
time.